This video is a continuation of problem 4-7 that walks us through consolidation under the proprietary parent company extension and entity theory. So in the first video, we have calculated the acquisition differential, the amount we want to attribute to inventory and PP&E, our goodwill, and of course our non-controlling interest under each approach. In this video, now we are ready to actually do our consolidated statement of financial positions. I've put them all side by side for easy comparison. So let's just dive into it. For each one of these line items under the proprietary approach, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go and grab our book value of our parent. Of course, that will not be changing under each approach, but for the proprietary, we want to grab our proportionate amount of their book value. So we want to take 80% of the book value. We want to do the same for our accounts receivables. So that and 80%. Really wants me to do times, but I'm lazy. And then of course the inventory, same thing. I'll do times just so we don't get errors every time. That. Now, the one thing to note with inventory, before I go on to the plant and equipment, is that we did have that difference between our fair value and our book amount. We need to capture this 120. Easy way to remember it, at least for me, is if it's a positive up here, we want to have it as an addition down here. So we want to also add in our 120. Plant and equipment, same approach that we've been taking. And add in that negative 720. And of course our goodwill, we calculated above here. So if we add them all up, I always like to do this more as a check figure because of course your total assets should be equaling our total liabilities and equity, and it's a good way to make sure that we've captured all of the transactions. So we have half of the equation at this point. So let's continue on with the same approach for the liabilities. We want to add in our parent, and then only 80% of S company's book value. Oops, so I thought it did. Hopped on me. So at this point, we have calculated our accounts payable, current liabilities, long-term liabilities. Remember that we do not have any sort of non-controlling interest under the proprietary theory, as it's already sort of divvied up against all the different line items. So let's just do our total liabilities. Look like that. Now we can continue on and do our ordinary shares and retained earnings. So ordinary shares, let's pull from above, 10.5, and our retained earnings are given here as 83.70. Of course, we do not want to capture the other amounts under S because it's already sort of been split up per the line items above. So in order to do that, we want to take that and then, you know, let's just do this instead. Let's just do a subtotal. And my sum down there is trying to capture too many things. So let's just change this equation, and as you go along, you'll be like, wait a second, that's off. I pre-did all of the subtotals, and, well, I don't want to double capture it, so we just want to back it out. It's a good thing with Excel, it makes it easy to edit. So that is what our total liabilities and equity section figure comes to, which is awesome because it's the same as our total assets. This is a good thing. This is also the end of the proprietary theory approach. Next, let's move into that parent theory. So it does use different figures, and this is where we're going to see it become very obvious as to the differences between each of the approaches. So for cash, what we want to be doing, and actually for a lot of the line items, same thing, we want to grab the parent's total, so P company, but we actually want to be grabbing the full amount of S company's book value. So let's do that. We'll do the same for our receivables and the same for our inventory. Now we will want to do the same thing that we did before, is also grab that 120 for inventory and capture it. Plant and equipment. And goodwill, as we calculated above here, is still at 360. You can see this leads to a very different total asset figure. Scroll down and continue on our consolidation. So we have a number of the figures so far that we've combined, which is fantastic. Now remember that under the parent theory, we did calculate non-controlling interest. So in this case, we want to capture it in the liability section. It is not going to be pulled down to the shareholders' equity like the next few approaches. In this one, it is within liabilities. So let's do a sum of these figures. Should give us 12.3, and then we will want to have the exact same approach for our shareholders' equity. So let's just copy it over, and I'll just place the values, and I will also copy over and it's double counting that. We don't want to see that. There. So you can see our total assets are at 31,170, along with our total liabilities and shareholders' equity. Continue on. Let's go and do the parent company extension theory. So we've made it through two statements, two more to go. So we're going to take a very similar approach of grabbing the full amount up here of the parent and the sub. And of course, under this one, we want to be grabbing our inventory total, which under the parent company extension theory is 150. And goodwill, as we calculated above, we do not grab the full 450. We're going to be grabbing the 360, which is our proportionate share of goodwill. So you need to make sure you're grabbing the right one in this one. Let's continue with our liabilities. We don't want to grab that one. That looks better. Now, unlike the parent theory, under the parent company extension theory, we do not include non-controlling interest and liabilities. So let's just skip that one and work out our total, oops, there we are, liabilities based on that figure. So let's continue on. So here we will have the same ordinary shares, the same amount for retained earnings, that doesn't change. But now, like I mentioned already, that we're pulling down non-controlling interest under the shareholders' equity section. So we calculated it to be $16.50 right above. Let's figure out our total for our equity section. And if we did everything correctly, these two numbers should add up to our total assets, which, lucky for us, it does. On to our last approach, the entity theory. So far, they've been slight differences between the two, and we're going to see this one more time. Let's capture our figures. So I'll just start hopping up and down here. Nothing too dramatic so far. Once again, we capture the 150. And the 900. Now, goodwill, in this case, we are grabbing the 450. We didn't have to calculate the parent share, so please ensure under the entity theory you grab the full amount of goodwill. Same combinations are occurring for liabilities. Now, non-controlling interest does not go in the liabilities section, so please do not plunk it there. We will want to do a subtotal of our total liabilities. Okay, so now on to the final section. Let's first do our shares, which haven't changed. Same thing with retained earnings. Non-controlling interest is the $17.40 we calculated above. Let's do our subtotal for our equity section. Will give us $26.10. And if we did everything correctly, we will add the $10.5 to this $26.10, and it's the same as our total assets. So here's a run through of the proprietary, parent company extension, and entity theory, and it really gives you enough detail to see the differences between each approach. Thanks, folks.